Well, hi there, and welcome to the recording of episode 27 of season 2 of Marketing Scoop, the podcast brought to you by Semrush. Now, this is the informal intro just to allow a few people to join in. If you're watching the recording, you may want to fast forward 3 or 4 minutes until we get to the proper start, but you may not, because some wonderful stuff may be covered in this. You just never know. If you're not an audio podcast subscriber, that's a shame. You should be a podcast subscriber. But if you're not, just head over to semrush.com/podcast and you can find the links there to your favorite podcatcher, be it iTunes, Android, Stitcher, Overcast, Spotify, or something else. You can also play all the latest episodes there as well. There are thousands of downloads happening every single week of the audio podcast. So it's certainly something that you want to check out. It's a mildly edited version of the live show that we produce. We do a live show just about every single week. We certainly release a podcast every week as well. And my co-host virtually all the time is the wonderful Judith. Hello, Judith. How are you doing today?
Hello. Very well so far. Just finished judging, so head still spinning.
Well, hopefully still in a place to provide some wonderful insight and questions in the show. I'm sure it will be. There's been a few things happening this week. I know that there's been fluxes and various listings that have been seen through Search Console, but I also saw that there was an update done to the Yoast SEO plugin that seemed quite interesting to me. It added easy management of schema. And I mean, from your experience, Judith, would you say that schema is something that most SEOs aren't spending enough time on and aren't really taking advantage of at the moment?
I think, yeah, SEOs and businesses, because of course you don't necessarily have to be a super professional SEO to implement schema on your site. Understanding what entities are isn't critical, but understanding that schema can help Google understand your site is. So it will help Google interpret the information on your page and help them more easily classify it. So think about doing a search for the best chocolate chip cookie recipe. Of course, always my favorite example. And it pops up with pictures, prep time, yield, like how many cookies am I going to get from this recipe? Do I want a recipe for 12 or 36? 36. But it really helps. And it's not just that, it's also understanding what your business address is, what your hours are if you don't have a Google My Business listing, what the information on your page is. Are you doing a best of? Are you doing a comparison chart? Like if someone wants to know what the best tires for their Ford Mondeo is, perhaps if you've marked it up using schema, Google will more easily understand what's going on your page.
Do you have a Ford Mondeo?
I actually don't. It was weirdly the first thing that came to mind.
That's a random first thing.
Yeah, or Aston Martin Valkyrie.
So we've got a few people starting to watch us live now. We've got Judith saying, like my new glasses in the chat. We've got Ala Bavri saying schema helps Google to understand your website, of course. Hi to everyone watching. If you're watching live, please say where in the world you're watching and what area of digital marketing tends to be your focus, and any questions or comments that you have in relation to today's episode. We're going to be starting the introduction of proper just now. So let's get going with that and get on with the show. Marketing Scoop Season 2, Episode 27. What makes a campaign good enough to win an award? Broadcasting live on the Semrush YouTube channel, this is Marketing Scoop. I'm David Bain.
And I'm Judith Lewis, and welcome to the Semrush show that reveals the latest digital trends and technologies that impact your marketing strategy.
Together with industry experts, we delve into SEO, advertising, and content marketing to uncover the ultimate recipe for digital marketing success. So today's first guest is an experienced PPC expert. He is an account director at Clean Digital, a paid search agency based in Edinburgh, Scotland. Welcome, Rod Richmond.
Hi, guys.
Thank you for joining us. Well, next up, we have a man with over 6 years experience driving organic growth for websites all over the world. He's a senior SEO strategist at Jellyfish. So welcome to Edward Turner.
Hey guys, thanks very much for having us on.
Thank you very much for joining us. So I'd like to stick with you first, Edward, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You won Best Use of Content Marketing at the UK Search Awards with Project Carrot. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about what Project Carrot is?
Yeah, it's a very enigmatic name. So there's a very, very good reason why it's called Project Carrot. Internally at Latitude, which is now Jellyfish, we can name all our projects Project and then whatever the kind of buzzword is. So Project Carrot is it's essentially an in-depth analysis, a study that we conducted of fictional video game housing markets for London and Country Mortgages, who have been our client for a long time. And it is primarily a link acquisition campaign designed to kind of attract bucket loads of links. That was the goal from the outset. And yeah, so it's very, very lucky to, well, I guess hopefully not lucky to have won the award, but yeah, it was certainly a privilege to be awarded that, and looking forward to kind of chatting you through the inner workings of the project.
Great stuff. I mean, Judith will know a little bit more about the campaign itself, being a judge, but I can ask questions that I don't necessarily know whether are in the public domain or not, and you can, I guess, give us a little bit more information about the campaign. But in terms of the content that you're talking about there, it sounds like you kind of created content that was incredibly impressive and encouraged links. So can you tell us a little bit more about the content that you developed?
Absolutely. So the actual, what this project looks like is it's an interactive web page build. So it's kind of one of these web page experiences that is kind of displays data in a very, very visually attractive way. So hopefully we can put the link up so the guys on the podcast can see it. Do you have the link? I can grab it for you if not. But essentially you can get to it by Googling video game property. I think we rank for that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we ranked position 1 for that. Excellent.
So that's your personal Google results, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I incognitoed it, but yeah, that's as far as I went. So essentially what it is it's a really attractive looking web page that is, as we kind of know, we've kind of seen a shift from, I guess, 2014, 2013. Everybody was there was this gold rush for infographics, right? And everybody was kind of creating these sorts of things to attract links to the site. And as we've kind of gone through, we as an agency have tended to move towards the kind of HTML build stuff, because we find that we have to continue to kind of create to inspire and create kind of amazing looking projects in order to keep people interested, because everybody's kind of seen an infographic, so it kind of has to evolve into this amazing looking thing. So that's kind of where we got to. And yeah, I mean, the best way to do it, I suppose, is to take a look at the project yourself. It's geared specifically towards L&C's target audience, but with a kind of video gaming niche. And I can kind of, I guess, potentially later in the podcast talk to you a little bit about why we chose that particular topic as well.
So how did you actually go about kind of seeding those initial links? Did you have a list of relevant bloggers that you reached out to or built relationships with and then made them aware of it as soon as you had launched, or did you do something else there?
Absolutely. So it's a piece of original research. So it doesn't exist anywhere else on the internet, this information. So what we did was we actually, when we were constructing the content, we had to use quite a lot of information that was already out there. So what we did was we actually got in touch with the people whose information we used to kind of create a warm conversation. And we were able to outreach to them and say, hey, really, really grateful for this article that you did on X date. Just wanted to let you know that this is going live in a couple of weeks. Let us know what you think. Thank you for your help. And that we found that it sort of created a lot of engagement with both journalists and kind of bloggers.
Superb. We've got JYH saying in the chat, this site is brilliant, well done. So I'm sure you've had many positive results or lots of positive feedback as a result of doing this. We'll delve into a little bit more depth on this particular campaign with regards to what you did and the results that you had, and also what people can learn from that if they actually want to submit their own campaigns to hopefully win an award at some point in the future. But let's hear from Rod just now about his campaign. Rod, could you tell us a little bit about what your campaign involved?
Yeah, sure. So the client we ran this campaign for, a lot of people who will be listening, tuning in will have heard of. It's BrewDog. They're the biggest kind of craft brewery in the UK, and they, throughout their years of growth, they've kind of held runs of crowdfunding campaigns, where they look to offer shares in the company to new equity punks, as they call them. So equity punks are people who buy shares at a certain time and they own a share in the brewery. So in the 5th round of equity punks, now they've never really done a significant investment in paid media before, so paid search, paid social. So they spoke to us, and we ran all their paid search and paid social for Equity for Punks 5. And it was a year-long campaign where they were looking to raise £25 million throughout that year-long campaign. And by the end of it, we ended up raising 26.2 million. And then our PPC campaigns were a big part of it. And so yeah, it was a really fun campaign to work on. And we also look after the PPC for the online shop and a few other bits and pieces like that. It's a really fun brand. Definitely they have their own tone of voice and way of doing things. So it presents a lot of fun challenges along the way. And yeah, that was the crux of the campaign.
Fantastic. And I think that you've started another similar campaign?
That's right. Yeah. So again, they've just announced their latest Equity for Punks round, which launched last Monday. So that's open now. It's slightly different to the one before, and they've got like a big £1 million promotion. So one of the investors will, be up for there's a competition to basically win £1 million worth of shares. So I think the shares at the moment they start at around about the £25 mark, but for that you could win £1 million, so owning £1 million worth of shares in the brewery. So yeah, a real fun one again. But yeah, so that's just launched last Monday. So we're 10 days in. I think we're at about just closing in the 1.4 million mark. This is a shorter one this time. This could be for 90 days, aiming to raise £7 million in that 90-day period. But yeah, another real fun one to work on.
Wow, that's an incredible achievement in such a short time.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a cause quite close to myself as well, because the company itself, they're based in Aberdeen. That's where I'm from. So yeah, it's great to see a company up there just kind of taking over the world, opening up in Australia, China, big base in America now. So yeah, it's a real fun one to work with.
So to sort of pull it into the topic for the podcast and this webinar, what would you say are the constituent elements of an award-winning campaign? What would you say made you think, this is something that could win an award at the UK Search Awards or any other award ceremony? What about this campaign made it award-winning?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing was it's quite different to anything that's been done before. It's a huge crowdfunding campaign, so it's not just a case of selling the products, kind of B2C, kind of selling some beer online or whatever. It is a huge crowdfunding campaign in the kind of finance niche. So it's quite different. It's different to I've been working in PPC for about 10 years now, and I've never run a campaign like this on this scale. So I think that's the first thing that kind of popped up. The second thing was, again, just frame a reference from we run a lot of different accounts for lots of different clients. This one involved a lot of different channels, a lot of different creative. PPC can sometimes be a little bit black and white. You only have so many characters in a text ad to be creative with. But obviously with this, we had a lot of good display creative remarketing, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Twitter ads, things like that. So we had lots of nice visual things to go alongside it in an appendix. So yeah, and then, but all of the creative elements and thinking outside the box in terms of how we can engage with people who might be interested in not just beer but owning part of the brewery. That's fine, but underpinned by that was the results. We had to say PPC contributed a big part of the results for this campaign. So it was a combination of the two.
Rod, I saw that over 9,000 unique Google ads and 3,000 unique Facebook ads were used as part of this campaign. That seems like an incredible amount. Is that because you were continually honing and testing for better conversion rates, or was it better to use kind of multiple forms of creative?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of ad testing going on at any one time. Obviously, because there was, because there's a lot of different ad variations involved, and there's a lot of volume here, we could test quite quickly. With other campaigns, we don't have the click volume, we can't test very quickly. But this one, we could test real quickly and see very, this theme tends to work. Let's roll it out across everything. We also had 9 different countries involved, so it was translated copy as well. But a big part of it was we were very aware that this is a year-long campaign. It's a long campaign, so people are going to get bored with the same messaging. So we had to constantly update the messaging every few weeks with whatever promotion they were doing offline. And that's what BrewDog's great for. They're always in the news. They're always coming up with a new campaign, that we can then use that to try and get people interested in the equity for punk side of things. So, for example, a few weeks before the end of our campaign, they had a huge successful campaign for the Rate Beer. I don't know if you guys maybe seen that on the billboards and various London tube stations and train stations, where they had the ranking Punk IPA next to Foster's. So ratebeer.com, Foster's gets like 2 or 3 out of 100, and I think Punk IPA gets about 97, and they just have them side by side. Quite cheeky, quite in your face, but again, cross-promoting those ads across digital was a lot of fun, and that led to us having a lot of different variations live at any one time.
So you did a lot of integrated ads, a lot of different project elements. There was a lot that went into your campaign for one thing, but there were a lot of different constituent elements that went into your success. And I was just thinking about, for LNC, where we're actually talking about property, and we look at the entry, and obviously I've seen things that other people haven't. So I'm going to delicately ask this of Edward. So Edward, when we're looking at real estate, and I've seen the entry, it's not necessarily always the sexiest of verticals, and I know you did a tremendous amount of research for this, and it's one of my big soapboxes, is that you need to do a lot of research in order to do something that is link worthy. And obviously you did something that was tremendously research led and definitely link worthy. When you were doing all of this research in huge amounts, and interestingly, full furnished flat in Skyrim, not cheap. Did you think that this was going to be award worthy, or was this just you're a super creative agency with clients and it just happened to be award worthy?
So in 2015, we won the UK Search Award for Best Use of Content Marketing with a not dissimilar project, and it was not as successful as this project, but it was very, very successful. So we had empirical evidence to suggest that this sort of thing, in a potentially a more evolved form, would be not necessarily award-winning, because we don't necessarily set out from the outset to win an award. It's more about delivering some insane results for a client. But we had this, it's kind of like, it's difficult to explain, but you kind of get a feeling in the pit of your stomach when you've got something good. And this is something that I've heard sort of time and time again. You can try and bottle the process as much as possible, but when you've got something really, really great, you can kind of feel it. I know it's not very actionable advice, but yeah, does that kind of answer the question slightly?
Sort of. So you didn't really know that you were onto an award-winning entry. We
knew that we were going to get some great results. We knew that this was something, and that's kind of why we held off for a while. We had a couple of exclusives lined up. Actually, the first exclusive that we had lined up on a really, really big gaming site didn't work out. And we were kind of a little bit stumped, because we thought, okay, we can either launch this now or we can hold off and wait until something bigger comes along. And we held off, and I'm really glad that we did, because that created the snowball effect that ultimately led to us being we ranked for games in Google News with this project overnight, and it's something like 11.4 million impressions this project had, just by selecting our news source and being holding out and being selective about that. I think was absolutely the right thing to do, because we knew we had something special, and we wanted to just seed it the right way.
Ed, I'd like to understand how you actually went about selecting the topic that you chose, because obviously London and Country is a free mortgage advice website, and the content that you produced, an in-depth analysis of the video game housing market, it doesn't necessarily completely tally with their core proposition. So how nervous were you about selecting that as the core topic of the content? And did you have any, a secondary question here, did you have any aims to actually convert the traffic that you would have received as a result of doing this campaign?
The KPI was not to convert traffic, so I'll answer that secondary question first. The KPI was links, and so to answer your first question about whether we were nervous about approaching a topic which didn't necessarily directly correlate with the L&C target audience. So when we do a project like this, we have quite a rigorous process for we essentially create, not to reference Game of Thrones too much, but we build the wall, and the wall within our 4 walls here is essentially a list of criteria that this project must meet in order for it to be considered as an idea for us to run with. Now, this idea was a little bit, we arrived at it through we arrived at it through keyword research. So we were going to do a slightly different project for L&C, which was around kind of video games, because we were looking specifically at niches. So we're kind of in the business of building domain authority here. We saw that the L&C's domain authority, we needed to grow it. And admittedly, yeah, it would be awesome to get all of our links from real estate or financial sites, but we've also seen great evidence to suggest that tapping into niche audiences is an amazing way to get links. And actually, I would suggest that the gaming niche is possibly the best niche in terms of domain authority sites. It's ridiculous in terms of the domain authorities of the key sites within that niche. So in terms of our KPIs of let's get some links to this site, let's kind of get the brand name out there. I believe that there is a heck of a lot of crossover with L&C's target audience as well, because what we kind of saw was that when we did some market research into it, the kind of first, this is it's going to sound a little bit corny, but kind of the first time buyers of today are the kind of the gamers of yesterday. So the people who we found that there is that crossover between people who play video games and people who also are potentially interested in property, because it's so huge. But as I say, I was just mainly in it for the link juice.
And did you suggest that as a primary target to your client, or was it the other way around?
Sorry, what was the question?
Did you suggest that kind of building links as the primary target of the campaign to your client, or was that something that your client came to you saying, look, our domain authority or number of links pointing your site isn't that significant, that's something that we actually need to improve?
Absolutely. So we set the KPI. So we have an amazing relationship with L&C where basically they just trust us to do what we need to do to deliver results. And yeah, the domain authority results, I mean, when DA 2.0 came in, it sent L&C from being kind of mid-range domain authority between their competitors to being, they are now the lead in terms of they have the highest DA of all their direct organic competitors. So it was an excellent result.
What about yourself, Rod? I see that you had a campaign target of 25 million in the first year, and you beat that. Was that something that you set, the client set for you?
That was very much their overall goal from the client. So that was for the overall campaign as a whole, including our digital, that's their offline, that's their direct, everything all together. So yes, they did set that. And again, I suppose it's good to have a target like that, because the campaign was actually extended. So we didn't know it was originally going to be that. It was a 3-month, and then they extended it for an extra 9 months on top. So we had to kind of react to that change in target. But all the way along, I think we're all numbers guys. Here, we like Excel, data analysis, that kind of thing. So give us a hard metric, and we'll do our best to hit it and very quickly see what works and what doesn't. But just to pick up a point from Ed about niche audiences, I think that's something that was a big part of our campaign here. It's obviously a lot of people know BrewDog. They got a huge following. It's all about trying to, we'd much rather find 100 niche audiences, whether that's on Facebook and Instagram or whatever, rather than just going after the obvious ones. So looking for correlations. We found some strong correlations between like music fans of particular genres, things like that, other brands which are quite crafty, that kind of thing. So we did a lot of research around that, and that seemed to work well. So yeah, we like having a target. In short, that's always good for us as PPC people.
So, Rod, bearing in mind what you've learned as a result of doing this campaign, is there anything that you would have done differently that you think would have made the campaign even more appealing to win an award?
Yeah, I think that's we've kind of addressed that in the latest one that they've just launched. So as of last Monday, launching this new one, we've basically taken all of our learnings from the last one, channels that worked, ad formats that worked, audiences that worked, and then we've applied those learnings to this one. So we've kind of already done it, and some of those are we're trying some new ad formats, on some new channels. There's a couple of them I can't speak about right now because we're just in pre-launch stage, but some exciting stuff for us as a PPC agency. Some other channels that we've not really tried before. And then, I suppose just in terms of making quick decisions and, planning out our content. So we're really in line with the kind of content calendar from the client's end from the get-go. There's a lot of translation goes into our ads as well. So we've had a bit of a jump on that. So the messaging's a bit more organized in the kind of weeks leading up to it. But and then, as always happens with BrewDog, they have these great ideas, and it's very much a case of, okay, Tuesday morning we've had this idea, let's jump in it, let's try and get some ads out in the next 3 hours, and we can do that with PPC. So that's one of the real fun parts of the projects. So we always leave a bit of room to do those kind of fun ad hoc ad ideas as they come through.
So in next week's show, we're going to be zeroing in on Facebook advertising, but I'd also be interested to actually hear your perspective on the differences in terms of calls to action between Google Ads and Facebook advertising. So is there anything that you did that was significantly different? Did you, for instance, with Facebook, have a longer funnel and not so much of an immediate call to action?
So actually our Facebook calls to actions were varied based on the audience's relationship with BrewDog. So if they'd heard of BrewDog and they're already existing fans, or we knew that they were interested in certain things that people who were likely to invest were interested in, the call to action would be quite strong. Whereas if it was more, okay, we're not sure if these people are interested yet, we had quite a soft call to action. We thought they were top of the funnel. They don't already like BrewDog, but they like something that we think correlates with our other audiences. So we actually had 2 or 3 different calls to action running at any one time. Obviously, compared with Google, a lot of our best performing ads were dynamic on Google. So we actually pulled in information from the landing page on how many people had invested and where the target was at. So, for example, we've raised 17.9 million of 25 million, and we had that pulled through into a Google spreadsheet, and then we use dynamic ad parameters to show that in our Google ads. Now that works because it's very numbers focused. We're 64% of our way to the goal. Whereas with Facebook, it's more soft, learn about what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is why we're raising money. This is the benefits of being a shareholder, kind of softer messaging. So yeah, we with those 12,000 different ads, we obviously had to test a lot of different calls to action.
And which one, Google Ads or Facebook, actually drove the best CPA?
So Google Ads did drive the best CPA, but what we did is we did some fun stuff with kind of connecting the audiences together between Facebook and Google. So yeah, Google as tends to be true in most of our campaigns, we'll see the best CPA coming through on Google Ads, especially when it's like a direct transaction type of thing. But we absolutely need the Facebook ads to kind of get people further up the funnel and get them move them from interest to, okay, I'm ready to do this now. I'm ready to go ahead and convert.
So Ed, you obviously ran a very successful campaign, but what would you change about it for next time? What's one thing that you'd actually improve and use to hopefully make an even better award-winning entry next time?
So it's interesting. We have sessions where we go over this internally. So we kind of review how we could improve stuff. This project is essentially it's an evolution, so it's constantly improving from kind of those previous projects, like that one that I mentioned that won best use of content marketing in 2015. So one of the things that we found that could have been potentially a good tool for journalists to have in terms of continued link success was adding a kind of iframe element, so making it possible for really, really simple for journalists to kind of embed the project, because it was a fully responsive project. We think it could have added kind of that additional level of, the great thing about infographics back in the day was that you could give somebody an infographic and they would host it on the site, and they could therefore display your project on their site instead of just writing about it. So I guess as we move into these HTML builds, the concept of the iframe is kind of like, and this is something we're doing in projects now, is that you give them the iframe and they can actually host the project on a bit like an infographic on their own website. So I think that's something that we're looking into, and potentially could have improved the project and expanded the reach further.
I feel like we're kind of coming full circle as well with embedding iframes like we used to back in the day.
Yeah.
But with your project, I know that it was all about gaining links, and you
Yes.
wanted visibility for this project and gaining links, but did you do any paid promotion of the project, or was it purely PR outreach? I don't mean like paid outreach, but like, did you do any PPC, Facebook, anything, Reddit ads, any kind of advertising besides the outreach?
So no, and the simple reason for that is because we hit all our KPIs with, and it's kind of that sounds a little sassy, doesn't it, in terms of job done kind of thing. Weirdly, so we were really, really busy at the time when this was happening, and so we had a little bit of we were very stretched internally, and so what happened was we kind of nailed the outreach, and we were really, really happy with what we did, because that was kind of a test and an experiment as well, because we are quite a small, lean team up until recently, having joined Jellyfish. Latitude was an incredibly small team, so we're testing all these kind of different ways of outreaching to journalists and everything else. And so for us to have kind of we created the snowball effect of placing it in some really, really incredible and high DA sites with huge followings, and it kind of snowballed around the world. And at that point, we're kind of able to say, which is quite rare in content marketing campaigns, to be able to say, okay, job done, hands off.
Have some
and
beer.
It was quite nice. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a good segue back to Rob there. But yeah. So does that kind of answer the question? We could have probably done more. I'll be straight with you. We were stretched. So at that point, we said, right, let's draw the line on that, because we've more than hit KPIs, and we've kind of maxed out the organic performance of this particular project.
Does this mean you're going to do it again?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got all the pieces in place to do it again. But as I said, you can bottle the process as much as you can, but ultimately the ideation process has to churn out an amazing idea for an amazing project to happen. So even with all those pieces, if you follow the process down to a T, you still have to generate an amazing idea. And there is a very small part of that that's related to luck.
So just before we get to our actionable takeaways, I'd like to ask both of you just one more, probably most challenging question, and that is, what do you think is the common thread between winning entries, and what differentiates them largely between being a success and entries that don't quite make it and don't win an award? So Ed, shall we stick with you for that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So I honestly believe that from our perspective, so what we've seen gets the most nominations and the most wins is for SEO and content marketing is the kind of really, really exciting kind of projects. So the ones that we've won have been kind of large scale content marketing campaigns that have been visually spectacular, really, really creative in terms of their outreach, pulled out all the stops in terms of that. But all of that kind of means nothing without amazing results. And so you need to have an amazing narrative, and you need to have had an amazing idea. I know this is sounding very, very cliche, isn't it? But it's kind of like you need to have an amazing project, and you need to have done some amazing things that are kind of quite cutting edge, plus amazing results, because the results kind of don't really mean anything, or all of what you've done doesn't mean anything unless you've got results. So, and also kind of what we were saying just before this podcast began, make sure that your results line up with your objectives in the award entry.
And Ed, was your client L&C happy that they were submitted for an award, or do they just not particularly care about that?
Oh yeah. I mean, they love a night out. So Yeah, we all get to go to the awards dinners and have a good laugh. So yeah, they're over the moon with it. I think it continues to bolster trust, and in terms of the partnership we have, it's just going from strength to strength. So yeah, absolutely over the moon with it.
And what about yourself, Rod? What's the common thread between winning entries?
I suppose it's kind of like when you're pitching an idea to a client. I always say to try and get inside their mindset, and I think for an award, get inside the judge's mindset. You know, Judith will probably attest to this. You do see a lot of entries, maybe in a day. If it doesn't have anything that jumps off the page, or there's no clear results where you've kind of absolutely smashed it out of the park, don't bother, move on to something else. Or, you know, there's been times, I mean, last year was actually the first year after 6 years in business of entering awards for us. And we've had lots of campaigns which we could have entered, but we didn't perhaps have time. But there's also sometimes, you know, I'll speak to the guys and they'll put forward a campaign which they think might be up for an award. And I'll be like, it's a great campaign, but it's not award worthy. And that's fine. It doesn't mean, you know, you don't have to, it doesn't mean everything has to be entered. So really kind of going on what Ed says, you know, it's that gut feeling. If you know you're on something special, and you think that it's not, you know, it's going to really jump off the page to the judges who are looking at a lot of different entries, you've smashed the results, then I think, yeah, go for it.
Great stuff. Well, that just about takes us to the end of episode 27 of season 2. Just time for an actionable tip from each of our guests related to, or not necessarily related to, what we've been discussing so far. So let's stick with Rod first. So Rod, what is your actionable tip?
So I suppose just, yeah, going off my point of thinking like a judge, just every award entry will have an appendix. Sometimes with PPC, it's very black and white. So it's all results orientated. We did this, this, and this. So make sure to use the appendix to get your creative across on Facebook, Instagram. Even your Google ads can be kind of fun when you put them in an appendix. So definitely make the most of your appendix. That's a really good partner for you when you're doing these award entries.
Great stuff. Well, you can find Rod over at cleandigital.co.uk.
And next up, it's Edward. So Edward, what's your actionable tip?
So I guess just to frame what I've been talking about, don't be afraid if you're formulating a content marketing campaign. Don't be afraid to think about niche audiences that you could appeal to, that potentially have some crossover with your client's product offering. But I would say niche audiences are potentially the biggest untapped resource for content marketing campaign success.
Oh, and you've given away your secret too. You can find Edward over at jellyfish.co.uk. And I've been Judith Lewis, your co-host. You can find me over at decabit.com. And always remember, match your objectives to your results.
And I've been David Bain, your other co-host. You can also find me over at digitalmarketingradio.com. And I don't have a last-minute tidbit for you. Well, we're recording the next episode, season 2, episode 28 of The Scoop, in a week's time. The Semrush YouTube channel. That's on Wednesday, the 24th of April, for a show that will be looking at Facebook advertising in 2019.
Lucky them, and lucky us, because joining us for that episode will be the bodacious duo of Gavin Bell and Dennis Yu. So you know you want to sign up for that episode. You want to watch it. And you also want to make sure that you watch all of the episodes, future and past, over at semrush.com/webinars. And of course, you can also catch all the previous episodes of our podcasts over at semrush.com/podcast.
Thanks for joining us for this one, dear listener. Until next time, be fantabulous and do one thing that scares you. Adios.
Thanks, guys.